Hunt with passion. Never stop casting. Chase the dream. Welcome to Season 7 of Musky Mastery Outdoors, brought to you by Joe Bucher Outdoors, #1 in big game fish products. Recon Boats, made by craftsmen, built for fishermen, and by Great Lakes Potato Chips. Snack happy, every chip, every bag.
Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back to another Musky video here on the Musky Mastery YouTube channel. Well folks, welcome to episode 2 of Mastering Muskies from Beginner to Expert, our new winter whiteboard vlog series where hopefully, no matter where you are in your musky fishing journey, and that's right, this is a journey folks, whether you just started and episode 1 of our series got you started, or you are an expert, or maybe you've been fishing for years but you want to step your game up. Hopefully this series is going to help you get there and you are going to learn new tactics and ideas that are going to take you and your musky fishing game to the very next level. Now, before we begin on episode 2, which I think you're really going to enjoy here folks, because we are definitely going to step things up here. We're going to be, kind of starting to improve here from that beginner level now. So hopefully you studied up on the last episode, and we're going to be moving forward here. But before we begin, I want to go over a couple questions that the viewers posted in the comments section. The first question is from Andrew Morris, okay? And the question was regarding spinning reels and rods for musky fishing. So, of course, we talk a lot about bait casting setups because that's what I traditionally use when it comes to musky fishing. But if you were to be throwing a spinning reel, what are my thoughts on that just in general? So first of all, the basic idea on open face reels and rod combos is this. I am going to stand by, and I can certainly leave actual rod models, which I do not have prepared for you right now, Andrew, but the basic idea with regard to spinning rods is the same type of rod that I'm talking about when it comes to bait casting rods. I'm still, again, just to tab a couple of these things out, your basic top and tail rod. You're going to want a 9-foot medium heavy fast, okay? You're going to want the 9-foot medium heavy fast. Now again, whether there's my doctor handwriting. My grandfather, Grandpa Charlie, was a doctor, so I, of course, inherited some of that. But you're going to want the 9-foot medium heavy. You're going to want that 7'6" extra heavy fast. Okay, you're going to want some kind of jerkbait rod. And like I said, if we're only going to have 3 rods, which, let's face it, we know we're going to have more than 3 rods. I really love St. Croix's downsizer, that 7'10" medium power fast. That's just one of my all-time favorite little jerkbait, shallow rater rods. But regardless if you're using spinning equipment, I think the rod powers and actions are going to be kind of universal, okay? But the reel, I just wanted to say this, Andrew. With regard to the reel, it's all about what feels comfortable to you, okay? What I wanted to say is this. So again, by that, pick any musky reel that has a high, it's got a lot of line, high line capacity. It can hold 80-pound test musky line. Our super braids. That's awesome. What I think you need to think about is the actual musky line. Okay, what I'm most worried about when folks bring stuff occasionally. When I allow folks to bring their own gear on board, the first thing I ask, and the reason I'm so picky about this is, well, when did you change your musky line? What kind of line do you have on your rod? So the really important thing, whether you're using bait casting or spinning equipment, is just the musky line. Have good quality super braid on there, okay? Are you using 65-pound test on your spinning rod setups? That can double as heavy pike setups is what Andrew is asking. Of course, 65-pound test makes the cut, in my humble opinion. I use 65-pound test for various applications. I do think the spinning rod can make working certain lures more challenging, but again, there is a time and a place for a spinning rod in the Musky angler arsenal. So I give you a thumbs up on it. Just make sure that you've got good line, and I think you're set to go. I hope that makes sense. And again, if you'd like me to recommend a couple rods, I can gladly do that. Okay, before we get going, second question is from Dave Hart. Dave said, Chaz, you talked a lot about, your introductory lure set. Of course, we talked about the top grader here. We've got the old Psycho Froggy. And we talked about a lot of different lures, okay? Which I'm sure are all tangled down here. Not too bad. Okay. But Dave asked, well, hey, can you talk a little bit about the terminal tackle, especially the leader? Those of you who have followed me for years know that I'm an advocate of what I like to call the no BS system, which I inherited from my good friend Joe Bucher, who you all know. And what is the no BS system? Okay, well, the no BS system is just this, and I'm going to get to the actual, and those of you taking notes, or I can actually drop a link to this exact leader from JBO in the video description. But getting back to it, the no BS system is just super line, steel leader, split ring, lure, okay? I apologize right now in the vlog studio. I don't have this exact setup. In a future episode, I will actually show this to you. In fact, if you go look at any of kind of the vlog learning-based quick tips muskie segments, you will see, and I know I've pointed it out as far as what the no BS system looks like. You'll find it. So search in my video content, you'll find it. But essentially, what I'm doing is with my leaders is I'm taking my Nippics, my bolt cutters, and I'm just crunching off the snap, okay? The idea behind that, okay, is just simply that the snap is a wear and tear item, kind of like brake pads on a car. Over time, the snap, you open it and close it. Who knows how many times you're going to open and close it. Those of you with musky bait anxiety, you may be opening the snap, 20 times a day. Who knows? And you might, even if you don't have musky bait anxiety, on the course of a 12-hour day, you're going to be opening that snap a lot, right? And it's a fatigue spot. So what I recommend to folks is, hey, nice, we've got an ambulance driving by here. Great audio, right? What I recommend is take your number 7 or number 5 split ring there and go, you're gonna every one of my lures, by the way, has a split ring direct onto the line tie of that lure, okay? The reason for that, again, is just to avoid having a snap failure, okay? So I'm going steel leader, split ring, lure, and that's called the no BS system. Does the split ring fatigue? I will argue this with you. Of course, anything that moves can fatigue over time. A split ring, I will argue, you open it so little when you slide, when you slide the little clasp of a split ring over that part of the steel to thread it onto a steel leader. It doesn't fatigue very much. It's super strong. Knock on wood. This composite wood, I haven't really had an issue with it over the course of time. I've been using the no BS system, for a long time now, well over a decade, and I can tell you that it's pretty much bulletproof. We'll talk about some other terminal tackle stuff, but the leader that I use, JBO's, and this is the actual name of it, okay, this is the exact name on JBO's website. It is called the Premium Single Strand Ball Bearing Swivel. Ball bearing is critical. We call it the old 981 because the last 3 digits of the SKU are 981. It's an 11-inch, 165-pound test steel leader. Now, I use a variety of other leaders that JBO offers. I like the 7-strand. I like the little 9-inch steel leader. But essentially, for the most part, I'm using steel. And again, it's not crimped. One of the things you want to look for in leaders is avoid crimped ends to your leaders. Those will inevitably break. Those aren't good. So those are the two main questions I wanted to talk about here before we kick things off in episode 2. The last thing I want to talk about is I was going to call it this because I was incorrect, and it kept me up a little bit. Yeah, it's just me. I'm a perfectionist. LEM 7.6 extra heavy fast. Okay. The one thing I wanted to point out, because I don't want to leave you with incorrect information. So, hey, I'm going to call out, I made a mistake when I was talking about rod power and flexibility. Okay, when I was talking about Legend Elite Musky rod 7.6 extra heavy power. Okay, so this is the power. And when I drew my schematic here, okay, here's the rod, okay. Here's the butt end, here's the cork, okay. What I did draw incorrectly last time was just this, okay. An extra heavy power means that you have more bulk and power in the midsection and the butt section, okay? So you're going to actually have, so again, if you look back at episode 1, I did draw this incorrectly and it kept me up at night. You're going to have your flexibility more you're going to see a little bit of flexibility in the tip, less flexibility in the mid to butt section of this rod, okay? So it is in general a stiff rod, the extra heavy power, and of course, there is a reason for that because we're working heavy lures. Again, just an example of that, the walking raider here, okay, and canvasback duck. So just wanted to clear that up. But let's get into the new topic here. You're probably, if you haven't left quite yet, you're probably wondering what that new topic might be. And here it is, okay? Here is the topic for today's episode, and this is a really, really exciting topic. Reading water. What did I say here? How to know where to go. How to know, might have to get a new marker here, where to go. And so as we graduate here in episode 2, now that we've talked a little bit about the basic lures, the basic rods and reels, now we've addressed some of the terminal tackle stuff, how do you know where to go? Okay, well, let's start with this basic idea, okay? Because all of us across, or as my wife Stephanie would say, across. She's got that. She adds that T on there, the Michigan dialect there. But all across the United States and into Canada, where muskies roam, we're all fishing different lakes, right? And they come in many different shapes and sizes. We're fishing reservoirs. We're fishing rivers. We're fishing a lot of different stuff. So this is a really generic question, right? How do you know where to go? Okay. Well, this is what I think you need to think about, and we all need to think about this, okay? Take advantage of your lake's unique features, okay? So I'm just going to put bullet point 1, unique features, okay? I'm going to say that once more because I'm an educator, okay? Take advantage of your lake's unique features. Now, what do I mean by unique features, okay? When we talk about unique features, okay, you're saying, well, Chaz, does my lake have any unique features? Yes, it does. I can tell you that without looking at your hydrographic lake map. It's got unique features, okay? What we're looking for is a term that the late Buck Perry coined in his book Spoon Plugging, which was published in 1965, folks, okay? I don't know, if you can still find copies of this book available. I'm sure they exist, but Buck Perry came up with this term to describe what we would like to call changes in the makeup of a lake that distinguish it from other areas. We call this structure, okay? And don't worry, we're going to dive in here a little bit. So how do you know where to go? Well, you have to locate structure on your lake. Now, structure comes in a variety of different flavors, so to speak, okay? What would we define as structure, okay? I have a bunch of them here on my computer as I tab this out, okay? So we've got points, humps, Inside turns. Inside turns. We'll talk more about that. Inside turns. Drop-offs. Okay, drop-offs. Reefs. You're starting to get the picture here. What is structure? Now this is kind of a 225 idea coming your way here. Lake bottom transitions. Okay. Lake bottom transitions. I don't know if that's picking up here on the bottom there. Sorry, I'll kind of try to move my computer. And then the other one I wanted to put in here is current. Okay. Somebody's got to be thinking there, I don't know how Chaz's students read his handwriting, okay? But this is structure, and I will even put, within structure, because again, on a flowage, folks that watch my show here on Musky Mastery know that I'm fishing a lot of flowages in northern Wisconsin. These are essentially river systems that were created because dams were put in place many years ago, and so my flowages and different even lakes that I fish in northern Wisconsin have a lot of points, humps. They've got current, they've got reefs and drop-offs and inside turns, and they've got a lot of different bottom transitions. What we mean by bottom transitions is the content of the bottom of the lake. Does it go from hard bottom to soft bottom? What are those transitions? Because believe it or not, because you're here to learn, fish pick up on this kind of stuff, okay? So when you're looking at your lake, you have to figure out, do you have any of these things present, okay? And here's what's really important to think about, okay? First of all, you do not have to have all of these. In fact, even if you just have one of these factors present on your lake or body of water, or if you have two of them, you're winning, okay? Because everybody, no matter what, if you don't, in every lake that exists, I will argue this, has lake bottom transitions from hard to soft bottom, okay? Even if you have a structureless, I could quote, structureless lake, you've got lake bottom transitions. You've got probably, well, you might not have a drop off. But you can definitely have, so this is what we call structure, okay? Now, you're probably wondering, I'm going to talk about this next thing. Within structure, you've got these, okay? And these are things that we all know very well, okay? You've got weeds, rocks, timber, and we'll just leave it at that, okay? So what are these, okay? Weeds, rock, and timber, and how does that factor into, again, we're eventually going to go full circle here and talk about how to know where to go. As we begin to answer this question again, we have to start looking at these unique features that your body of water has. I was going to say may, but they have them, okay? So within these different types of structure, there are also what we call different types of cover, okay? So structure and cover are, by definition, a little different, okay? Cover is what we would say, cover is a term that describes, I like to say, features of structure. So it's a feature of a structure that allows either a muskie to hide in ambush or its prey meaning walleye or perch or bluegills or bass, to hide in ambush their prey, okay? These are things that offer muskies an ability to ambush and hunt their prey, okay? And again, some systems feature weeds, rocks, and timber. Some systems are heavy with weeds and they have zero rock. Okay, some lakes have it all. Some lakes have only timber because there's some kind of reservoir and they have no rock. They have no natural rock structure, no natural weed structure, or very little, or something like that. And it's all man-made fish cribs or something like that, or human-made fish cribs. Okay, so let me give an example here of putting this all together. So again, basically what you need to know is you look into this, and I don't mean to be too repetitive, but it helps me when I'm teaching to repeat these things. You need to be able to say, okay, look at your lake map, look at your lake, and say, okay, what kind of structure is available to hold muskies? Within that structure, what types of cover are present that the muskies will gravitate toward on that structure, right? Because think about this, you can have a reef that has weeds on it, but the weeds, let me give you an example. I'm gonna give you a couple examples now, okay? Hopefully this doesn't fall apart. my vlog studio. Okay, so you can have, let's say, a reef here. So I'm going to draw a reef here. Okay, and we'll just say, let's put some contour lines here. Let's say the top of this reef, let's say it tops out at 6 feet. Okay, and here's 8 feet. And then we'll say, okay, here's your 10. And then it drops pretty quickly, 15 and then 20, okay? So something like this. So here's a reef, okay? And to make my point here, so this would be called structure, okay? So all around this reef, and a reef would be, consider it a hump, a reef, kind of the same thing, tomato, I suppose. I suppose there's probably a little bit of a difference between humps and reefs. We get into that later, but that's a little bit of fine picking there. But with my green marker here, I'm just going to show you that let's pretend maybe this is north. Okay, a lot of times this happens. So on the north section of a reef, and by the way, if you hear any noises out there in the kitchen, my dear wife Stephanie's probably starting to prepare something for dinner, so she's running some water and doing something out there. But this would be your cover. Let's say you've got cabbage, okay? Let's say we're in a stained water system, okay? And let's say maybe we've got more on the east side, okay? Something like this. And it's growing fairly shallow. Maybe we've got a little bit that grows out toward 8 feet. But this is your cover on the structure, okay? So you need to be able to distinguish between those two things on your body of water. And if you can find them, this is part of the part of it when it comes to knowing where to go, right? You've got to find structure, you've got to find cover. And this can vary quite a bit lake to lake, like I said. So here's an example here. We could consider this, and see, even within a reef, okay, we could consider this, let's say the wind, let's say we've got wind coming in from the north or northwest. Let's say we've got a northwest wind blowing in on this reef here. We'll call this a point on the reef, okay? That point on the reef would be the structure. The weeds here would be the cover, okay? And so it's important to understand, what's important about, why would this place be an important place to look for when it comes to muskies and finding muskies? Well, first of all, I think about, a lot of these bigger structures. I'm just going to name a few again. Your reefs, your main lake points, islands. I should have included an island in there. Current. The big thing is this. These are places where muskies go to eat, okay? And you want, a lot of times I think about these places like grocery stores, okay? The analogy I like to make is, it might be your local, mom and pop grocery store down the street, or it could be something as big as your Walmart Supercenter, which has everything, okay? Because structure varies in size. I'm just going to hit a quick point here. The bigger the structure, the more muskies it's generally going to attract. The same analogy holds true to our day-to-day life. The bigger the grocery store, the bigger your Walmart Supercenter or Costco, whatever it is, the more people are going to go there. So the bigger structures you can find, the more muskies in general they're going to attract. The smaller the structure, a lot of times, and now this is just in my experience, perhaps there's always an anomaly, but this is just a generality. The smaller the structure, the smaller the percentage of muskies at a given period of time. So that might be the trick there. At a given period of time, they may be using that structure at one time. If you identify a large piece of structure, so let's say this reef is 500 yards long. Now that changes the game. Comparatively, if this reef was only 50 yards long, a little bit different there, right? 50, a reef that may be 50 yards in length. Maybe there's only one fish. Maybe there's two fish there. Although I've had muskies. I've had, who knows, 3 muskies or something on a really, really tiny little spot. But the bigger the spot, let's say this reef is 500 yards, or maybe it's 1,000 yards long, whatever. The bigger the spot, the more likely than not that you've got multiple predators here. It's just bigger. You got more muskie shopping at the grocery store. Okay. So again, this is just really important, just terminology. And here's the goal again that I think that I want you to focus on is focus on this. Identify structure first, then consider how the presence of cover enhances it. So this is a really important point, okay? So this is the, how do you know where to go? Well, first of all, you find structure. Secondly, you look at that structure and saying, is there cover present that enhances the ability of muskies to find food at this place, okay? So here, the cover for sure enhances this muskie holding structure, okay? If we're going to be specific here and look at this, we of course have a point, and you can see here we have a little bit of an inside turn. We have a little bit of an inside turn here, an inside turn here. Of course, a really big inside turn here, and of course you've got the point, okay? These are all what I would call ambush spots. So muskies know, and they could be cruising around, but a lot of times what I'm finding is that muskies are hidden in here somewhere. And these are areas where we're looking to cast. So again, if you're going to mark off, okay, where are the muskies going to be hiding here? Well, on this particular reef with this weed cover, you've got, probably with the wind pounding in here from the northwest, you might have, spot 1, spot 2, and again, this is not drawn to scale. Let's pretend this is a huge reef here, okay? But you've got 1, 2, 3, this is a killer here, 4, and 5 on the backside. Never forget the backside of a reef, okay? And that's not to say a muskie couldn't be anywhere in here, but a lot of times this is when I'm looking at a reef like this and I'm looking at the cover on the reef. Now, what about over here? Of course, well, here's where this comes into play, okay? And of course, we can talk about out here and out, in suspended. We'll talk about suspended muskies later. If you catch a muskie here or here or here or here, let's just say you move a fish on this structure with this cover present. Then we look here. Then we go here to look. If I fish this, let's say this is again, let's say this is large. Let's say I just fish this. I'm gonna mess my map up here, okay? Let's say I just fish this. Let's say I fish the windblown part. Let's say we're short on time, or let's say I've got another high quality spot. We got a moon phase coming up. Let's say we just fish this. If I move a fish here, then I might look at these spots. If I move a fish here or catch a fish here, then I might go check this kind of craggly gravel area. But if I don't, I may not go and fish that, okay? So, again, one of the things that I want you to focus on, let me just erase this here, is, okay, you've got structure, you've got cover, but let's say you've got a lot of different things, okay? Let's say you've got multiple humps, multiple, points. Let's say you've got multiple current zones. So now you say, okay, Chaz, I get this idea. Now I can look at my lake or my body of water and start identifying structure, right? Well, how do I know what to go and focus on? Well, here's the big thing, okay? Let me just take a sip of my water here. the big thing is this, okay? We call it, I like to call it, you can call it whatever you want, the baitfish connection, AKA food. Find food, find the muskies, okay? This is a really important thing to consider, okay? Muskies in general, okay, are just always going to be close to their food source. So when you find the food, you find the muskies. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I mean, essentially, you can do this visually using your hunting instincts. You can see different birds or different animals, otters and beavers and muskrats. You know, you can see blue herons or whatever, eagles. I mean, the whole ecosystem, when the wildlife is present, you've probably got, there's a good chance you're going to have, you know, just bait present, okay? That's really important. And of course, you've got electronics being option number 2, maybe. These are not in any general order, although I would say using your eyes and ears, you know, looking at the wind current and things to locate food. Of course, your electronics. In the modern musky era here, you know, using your electronics to locate baitfish is of great importance. And then thirdly, I would say, actually fishing for what I'm going to call baitfish. So back, you know, many years ago, when I first started guiding, you know, really my first guide jobs were all walleye trip, you know, guide jobs. All, you know, that's, I wasn't really known as a muskie guy. Of course, I was obsessed with muskies, but, you know, walleye fishing was what started my guiding career. And what I found kind of interesting when I was younger, and I still find interesting today, is that I would, you know, guide walleyes in the morning and muskies at night or something like that. And my best walleye spots in the evening, so let's say, again, let me back up. My best walleye spot on my morning half day, where we, you know, we got our bag limit, or, you know, cleaned up the perch and the pike and everything. Of course, when I take my next group out in the evening for muskies, that spot would inevitably produce something, whether it was a big blow up or we caught a fish or two there. Those were the best spots. So never forget this important idea of, you know, seeing it, locating it on your electronics, and then actually just catching it yourself, going out and fishing for crappies, fishing for perch, okay? Or talking to people that do fish it, okay? So let me see here in my notes here. I have something in my notes here called a deeper look. A deeper look now. Now we're, you know, the whole question is how to know where to go. Well, we've talked about structure. We've talked about cover. We've talked about the bait-fish connection here. But, you know, now just this general idea that I wanted to talk about is this, you know, how does a muskie use this structure or cover? Well, you know, this idea here, how does a muskie use a piece of structure? Like, why are we trying to identify structure as far as to know where to go? Well, over many years of looking for muskies, finding muskies, catching some of these muskies, using my sonar equipment to understand this behavior, the basic idea is this: like, muskies use structure and use cover to access bait, access prey, and then ambush their prey. So there's two things going on. They're using structure to gain access to prey. They're using structure to ambush that prey, okay? And of course for feeding, and all of these things kind of work together. It's a place to find food, it's a place to attack and eat food, okay? Now, just getting back to our reef analogy, do muskies spend time off structure? Of course they do. I see this all the time. If you've, you know, if you use your electronics enough, you're going to see muskies, and many of them off structure. Are these muskies catchable? Yes, some of them are. But a lot of times I find these muskies, and again, this is a generality. A lot of the things we're talking about are generalities. And there's a lot of, some of you want me to go down deeper on some of these rabbit holes. We will do that as we talk about open water and things like that. This is just kind of the, you know, this is only the second installment, okay? But muskies off structure could be digesting food. They could simply be just relaxing and conserving energy. Maybe they're avoiding some of the fishing pressure or boating pressure. Who knows? And you have to remember this too, that muskies And again, this is what I mean about going down a rabbit hole, because I do want to be careful, because we can really dive in here, and poor Steph will be out there for like 3 hours. Like, what the heck did you do with this whiteboard vlog? I haven't seen you, all night. Okay, but here's something to consider. Okay. Muskies over open water. I mean, technically, we've talked about this, and Tom Gelb and, RIP have talked about a lot of these things. With regard to muskies over open water, have pretty much everything, right? They have, access to schools of bait that are migrating throughout the basin, perhaps. So they've got their food there. They can suspend at a depth that is comfortable to them. And let's face it, less people are fishing out in open water. So they may not just be digesting food or relaxing. And there are some arguments that fish actually are not digesting food necessarily, perhaps even in open water. Perhaps the biggest fish in the system digest shallow and feed deep. And there's actually quite a bit of evidence from my boat and other boats that suggest that could be true here. But again, we're just talking about generalities tonight, and just getting you started on this journey in mastering muskies. So, what do we do now? Okay, let me look through my notes here, and we'll kind of sum a few things up. We talked about structure versus cover. We talked about some examples of that. We talked about identifying productive structure and then looking for the presence of cover. We talked about focusing on the bait-fish connection, why muskies are using structure, and now comes an important thing: is, well, make a prediction. Predictions. Now, where do you go? Let's say you've got 3 pieces of structure. How do you want to plan your morning out? Or let's say you've identified on a larger body of water. Let's say you've got 8 really quality pieces of structure now. You said, okay, Chaz, I listened to your vlog. I saw what you drew out here. I found 2 really, really good looking points, a current zone, and 3 reefs. You got 6 spots there, right? 2 points, a current zone, and 3 reefs. What are you going to do? Well, you have to take a bird's eye view of this lake system, whatever it is, lake or system you're on. And you want to predict, now this is where, there's more to this. I mean, this series, gosh, you want to look at this. We'll talk more about this, but seasonality, that does say seasonality, by the way, okay? Seasonality, seasonally, where do you believe forage is going to be holding? Okay, so this is this idea here. So prediction, seasonality with forage location. Okay, that's an important thing you want to think about. Seasonality and forage location. Where is the forage seasonally? How does that affect what structure you're going to be fishing? How does that affect how the cover on that particular structure is developing? And ultimately, where will you go to hunt muskies, okay? So, in the lower section of the screen, I think based on, well, now I'm looking at myself on the camera, I'm going to put it over here. Okay, whatever. It's going to be over here. There's going to be a photo of me holding a beautiful muskie here that I caught with my very good friend Mike Richardson. Okay, let me tell you the story on this muskie here. Okay, as you can see in this photo, and we're going to end with this. We're just going to give you an example here and talk about just a real quick discussion. Did you get that quick discussion? How far are we in on our vlog here? 39 minutes. We're not too bad. When I start talking, nothing is quick. I like to talk. I like to describe things. So you can see in this muskie photo. First of all, let me tell you, this is July, okay, which is kind of funny. I've got my OG, my classic green. Old is an ancient Patagonia flannel. Okay, I mean I've had this thing forever. Okay, this is July. It's a north wind. It's day 2 of a cold front, okay? Conditions are not optimal, okay? So what do we got going on, Okay, well, this particular situation, you got something like this, okay? And so this is, now this becomes a couple different things. So this is a big reef, okay? Reef. So again, we got a cold front in July, late July, okay? Nasty. Air temps are in the 60s. We got a north wind ripping into this spot, okay? North wind is, well, I shouldn't say ripping in, but it's blowing 10 miles an hour. It's cool out, okay? And this particular reef is just loaded with cabbage, okay? All throughout look at this Bob Ross, nice little happy weeds here. You can make your weeds, when you're drawing on your whiteboard, you can make your weeds look however you want, okay? And if you make a mistake, it's a happy little mistake, okay? You can make your weeds however you want, okay? There you go. There's some cabbage and some coontail and all sorts of things, okay? So we got, on this particular hunt, poor muskie movement. I mean, the muskies are not moving. Oh my gosh, you know what I just forgot? My magnets. I got to find my muskie magnets here. Muskies are not moving here, okay? And I decided on this particular hunt that I'm going to focus on really, really thick cover. I should probably add in here a depth. Let's say this tops off at, we'll just call it, 5 feet here, and then we've got 7, 8, 10, things like that, okay? At this point, I had, and my buddy Mike Richardson, the Iceman, and I had fished. We had fished timber, we had fished rock structure, and we're not seeing evidence to continue looking at structures with that kind of cover on it. Okay, so now you're noticing me distinguishing between those terms. I'm fishing various structures with weeds and rocks, weeds, rocks, and timber. Well, the rocks and timber hadn't really been producing, so we had been putting our focus on the weeds. So I wanted to find the thickest weeds possible. And, I really was looking for slop cover that was likely going to be holding stubborn muskies that, either most anglers were overlooking because they didn't want to fish it. It was too nasty and thick, which is really just the case. Or just muskies that were just, either overlooked and probably just sitting there, and they're just begging to be cast at. So here's the lure of choice, guys. The SlopMaster, okay? So first of all, tool for the job. I'm fishing real thick cover. Here I've got a reef, and important to that reef are two things, okay? You've got a point, and you've got this, okay? You got the inside turn here. You've got the inside turn. So you've got a structure, you've got cover, you've got this inside turn. I would say that's structure. Okay, that is a distinguishable feature here. Okay, you've got structure. So I started with my buddy Mike, working our way in, and we inevitably worked our way right into what I really would say is the prime spot. This inside turn leading up to the point. Muskies, are they on the points? Of course they are. But a lot of times your muskies, lead fish theory, absolutely. But a lot of times these inside turns are just killer spots. So we started by fishing the windblown part of the structure, and I was casting my SlopMaster deep, really deep, mostly just perpendicular. Yes, I'm throwing my test cast out here parallel to the break line, but I'm throwing deep. When I'm throwing this type of cover here, when I'm throwing, slop weeds, I'm throwing, a single hook spinner here. I mean, you can see how big that hook is there, okay? I'm throwing a big single hook spinner, SlopMaster, right into that cover, right perpendicular into it. And all of a sudden, this is kind of a cool story. All of a sudden, I'm doing my figure eight, and Mike goes, dude, dude, you got one on you. And from the angle of the sun, you can see it's kind of sunny that, the sun's up there. I can't see anything. So I start to make that turn a little bit wider here as Mike yelled at me, you got one on you, dude. And sure enough, as I made that figure eight turn, that first turn of my figure eight wider, and I kind of turned on the gas, I hit the pedal, and I came into the middle of that figure eight, pow! That muskie just hammered it. I never saw the fish. In fact, this is one of these classic. I was going to nickname that spot the John Stockton, who was one of the most famous ball players for the Utah Jazz during the 90s. One of Michael Jordan's great rivals. John Stockton was one of the great assist masters of NBA basketball. So I said, Mike, you got the assist here. You were like totally John Stockton. I was Karl Malone on that one. And I didn't see the fish till it hit. And we scored a major touchdown. It had been, I think that was our second day. We had fished, and it was in the afternoon, as you can see in this photo. And, it was a huge win. And that inside turn was really important. The lure, of course, we're fishing windblown cabbage, which is, we can talk about windblown cover, but again, I'm slow rolling this with that big Colorado blade. I'm working it nice and slow and in crummy conditions, and we scored a win. And that's just a little bit of an example of how I'm using structure, cover, a little bit of mentality as far as why wasn't I fishing rocks on that particular day that led to a muskie. And there you go. So, that is episode 2, folks. I hope you've learned a little bit more on just reading water, how to know where to go, just some basic ideas that you can put into your arsenal when you're looking at your own lake map. You want to look for these features. You want to start, highlighting those things, okay? And then you're going to go look for a cover, and then you're going to look for baitfish, and then you're going to make your list from top to bottom. Number 1, like the spot that you feel is the best one, hit that first. Or maybe not, maybe hit that on the primary moon phase, okay? Something like that. But this is the general idea behind knowing where to go, okay? So with that said, I really cannot thank you guys enough for watching. If you have questions, as you saw in the beginning of this episode, leave them down below and I will start. And of course, depending on how many questions, maybe we can't get to all of them, but at some point in the Whiteboard series, we'll get to all your questions. And like I said, can't thank you folks enough for your support. And I really hope that this Whiteboard series brings you something fun to do over the winter. It is, of course, brought to you by my most amazing sponsors in the world. They make this possible, this whole thing. You've got Joe Bucher Outdoors, you've got Recon Boats, and you've got Great Lakes Potato Chips. So, and of course, my folks at St. Croix Rods. How can I forget them? So they are the folks that make this all possible. So with that said, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, thanks for watching.